Oh, yes. This is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. And today's show has a sponsor, Cheshire Impact. Wow, I've heard that name before. And this team is on a mission to help you maximize your use of Pardot and Salesforce. Pardot and Salesforce, let's do this. CheshireImpact.com. Bam! Now, my guest for today is awesome. So awesome. This is the second time she's been here, an old pro. She has smashed myths left and right. She's got more for us today. And I best describe her as the buyer whisperer. She is a marketplace Yoda. She is all about research and conversations with your buyers, analysis and consulting to understand your marketplaces better. And the reason we're having her here, I will get to. But first, speaker presenter, Harvard Business School, President of EastSight Consulting, Parmelee Eastman. How are you? Welcome back.
I'm just great, especially after that introduction. I love it.
Well,
Thank you.
I had
enjoyed
to
being on your show. It's just been great.
Well, welcome back. Welcome the heck back because, you know, it's the end of the year. In fact, for us, it's a Friday. If you're listening to this and it's a Wednesday, you're a little late, but you know what? Today can be your Friday. So
Yes.
It's Friday for us, and it's the end of the year coming up. The future is there, 2019. We got to get used to having an odd number at the end of our year again. Happens every year or so.
Yes, it does.
And it's all about planning for the unknown, or maybe even researching and getting some more intel on the unknown to be able to make a best plan, you know, as marketers and just as humans. So I wanted to bring you back in here because you had hinted at your wizardry skills in terms of, you know, your research helps inform your decisions in the future. So please, here is again your old friend Thor's hammer. Take this hammer and smash a myth for me, for everyone.
So a lot of companies cut back during a downturn. That's not what they should be doing.
Don't do it.
Don't cut back and kind of wait in your little corner until the economy improves, because somebody else, one of your competitors, is probably not doing that. And they're going to be right there to pick up customers during the recession and as soon as it starts to turn around. Let me give you an example.
Yeah.
There's a couple of examples, but one of them is Domino's Pizza. So years ago, during the last downturn, they did a survey, and people kind of thought their pizza crust was just like cardboard, and their sauce was
like cardboard.
Yeah, like the glue that you used to have in grade school. So they did a lot. They spent some money on improving their product. Now, some people still don't like it, but I think it's better than it was then. And then they spent money on a big campaign that said, hey, we asked you and you told us our pizza crust was like cardboard. Our sauce was like glue. We've improved things. Please give us a try. And they spent some money on promotions as well as on the advertising. And their sales turned around even while other companies were really seeing sales drop. So they just took the bull by the horn and said, let's do it now. Let's try it. It's not like this was the highest priced good in the market. So people could afford pizza. They cut back on everything, but they could afford some pizza, especially if they had some kind of incentive and are like, oh yeah, let's try it. And then it did improve their sales. Now so that was really smart of them. I mean, there's no reason to hold back on a good campaign if timing is bad. People still spend money. You can actually get more attention because other competitors are not. Now, the thing that tech companies, so you look at some of the tech companies, and the ones that have done well are the ones that just keep on investing in research. So, Intel just has to keep cranking out that next generation of chips. And every downturn, they just keep cranking, crank. So
next chip. Yep.
Next chip, that they didn't necessarily invest more, but they certainly invested the same.
Right.
And then they were ready because their chip products were ready for the turnaround.
Right. I guess it's a natural tendency, and we're up here in New England, and I'm specifically New Hampshire, and it's gotten chilly out. It is,
Yep.
is it almost December? We're on the edge, November 30th.
We're on the
So
edge in a few hours.
few hours will be in December. It's cold outside. And
It
sometimes that
is.
natural tendency when it gets cold out is to, get that coat on, kind of bundle up and hide away.
Exactly.
Probably eat bad food, but also hide away and try to stay away from the cold. But at that same time, it sounds like you're saying your competitors are out there disrupting the market, investing in the market, maybe stealing your market share. So
You
not
need to be
necessarily,
out there doing the same.
yeah. Or they're
And
doing
this
the
could
same.
be
Yeah.
and this could be actually a better time. They may be staying inside
Oh,
because of the cold. You don't know what they're going to do. And that's one reason, even in a downturn, you've got to take a look at what your competitors are doing.
right.
But yes, most companies do cut back when the economy is bad. And is it bad? Well, that's a good question. And if I knew the answer, I'd be sitting on a yacht someplace. But there are a couple of leading indicators that suggest that we may be seeing a downturn next year sometime, or the start of a downturn. And that's not for sure. It's just too complex to really be figured
Yeah.
out. But it's one of those things that if you're planning for the future, you need to take that into account.
Mm.
So your planning for next year should always be, I call it, bottoms up, not tops down, and
Hmm.
outside in instead of inside out. In other words, I've gone through in a big company planning. Okay, you start with the low levels. What are your customers doing? You ask the salespeople, then you build it up and you build it up and you take it to the top, and then the top doesn't necessarily like it, the top guy. And then
Right.
so we did that once in a downturn, and I think we said we'll grow by like 4 or 5%. That's respectable. The message came back, no, you're going to grow by 12%. No, we're not. I mean, it was like we revised all the predictions, all our paperwork, and then we went back to doing exactly what we've been doing before.
Uh-huh.
So that's why I say bottoms up. Doesn't mean you can't stretch, but you can't just demand.
Oh, I see
So
what you're saying. And so don't like demanding growth from on high.
yeah,
Uh,
don't just. But see if you're going to ask for additional growth that doesn't come through bottoms up, then what are you going to do to help those people grow?
right.
So there has to be more to it than just quote unquote a stretch number.
Right.
So, and I also believe you really need to understand what's going on out there. It starts with the economy. Say economists look at something called the inverted yield curve.
Ooh,
And that's, and
sounds
I'm not going to
tricky.
get into details, but it basically is looking at the interest rate you get on a 2-year treasury note versus the 10-year. And when they get close to each other, it's or really when the 2-year is higher, it's called an inversion. And after an inversion, you typically see a recession 12 to 18 months down the road.
Hmm.
But we had something that was almost an inversion recently. So does that count? And what about this 12 to 18 months? Is it 12 months or 18 months?
Yeah, that's true.
And
Hey,
then
what's 6 months amongst friends? Half
yeah,
a
okay,
year.
that's
That's
right.
crazy.
And then the other problem is if you have an inversion, you're going to have a recession, but you can have a recession without an inversion. So I'm just saying that when you start to see potential indicators, you just need to take the possibility into your plan.
Okay, well,
Your
I got a
plan,
question.
yeah.
So go on the offensive even when it's winter. Yeah.
Yes, you can.
When it's a cold season, you can maybe your competitors are hiding away. You can go on the offensive, and then at the same time, we're saying be aware. Markets can go up and down. So what action do you take based on thinking that maybe some things are going to happen? Say 2019. Let's say there's a
Yeah.
little bit of a downturn. So how do you prepare for that? As a marketer, as a business.
I think you still have to, you have to know what's going on because your message and your methodology of, your approach might be a little different. So you might be more inclined to say, I got a way, if you get my software, I can save you money. So you might be
Oh,
more inclined to have that message instead of a I can help you grow message. So it's
got it.
almost like I can help you survive because you're going to be more efficient. So it's, you marketeers talk about the pain versus gain message, but I think when you're in a turn, you're really going to see an advantage in the pain message.
Right.
Things are a little tough out there. Uh, this investment will, save you a lot of money and will help you get through this downturn. As opposed to, wow, everything's great, but I can help you grow faster than anybody else. So
Right.
those are simplistic messages. I'm just showing you
Sure, sure. It makes
the
sense though,
difference.
because you're saying to someone, hey, we'll help you grow like gangbusters this year, and they're like, grow? I'm trying not to lose my pants here. I'm trying not to
Yes,
have the floor fall underneath me. That doesn't make sense to me at all. So the economy can inform your messaging. That's really interesting. And
it
if
can.
if
Yeah,
the belts are tightened or the strings are on those coin purses are tightened, then now it's like, hey, we can put some money back in that coin purse of yours, sir. Probably not use the word coin purse, but we can save you money and make this happen.
it doesn't mean that you're ignoring your regular messages of
Right,
what you do, what your product does,
right.
but it does mean that you're adding that flavor to it. And you may want to find that different channels are more receptive or less receptive, or more expensive or less expensive, because there is that difference in the demand. So the key though is just not making a plan and for the year and just like one and done. Okay, I made a plan.
Yeah,
You have to keep revisiting it. You have to keep looking what's out there, what's going on. And I think that is key, because when you really see things change, then you can respond to it. So your plan should almost be a most likely, and then have some if this, if that, so that you have some plans in place if you see the economy turning around, starting to grow or starting to drop. And of course, your economy, when I say your economy, I mean there's the overall economy, but each downturn seems to hit some industries worse than others.
oh, which ones?
Well, remember the dot-com boom?
Yep,
Oh, that was a real bust
it was
for technology companies.
pits.com.
Yep, that was a real bust.
Yeah,
Now, then the next big boom was in real estate,
right.
and I was still in technology and I wasn't affected as much. So now we know, you read the headlines, the auto industry and all their suppliers,
Oh,
they're going to be hurting because they're going through a couple of major um, transformations.
auto right now. That's right. I heard
So
about that
think
in the
about
news.
that. That's kind of like, because it's not just the one auto company laying off 14,000 people. Uh, they've offloaded a lot of their suppliers. So there's probably 14,000 people at suppliers that are going to
Yeah.
get laid off now. So you just double
Okay.
that. I mean, that's a rough.
Sure.
Then
Yeah.
you think about all their suppliers of raw materials. And then you think about all the companies that have been taking care of those auto workers. If you had a Dunkin' Donuts near that Lordstown, Ohio plant, forget it. I mean, so there's this ripple through the communities that
Right.
are around these plants. And hey, this is the way it goes. I mean, we're heading to electric cars, and
Yep.
we're heading to cars as a service,
Mars.
the self-driving,
Yep.
taking Ubers instead of owning a car and all that. So
Yeah.
it's just, that's the way it is. It's almost independent of the economy at this point, but it's clear that any downturn in auto purchases are going to hit the auto industry especially hard, since it's already cutting back. So that's just an example of, you can look around and say, oh, that industry, yeah, they're going to be hurt.
Right. It tends to be that vertical. Interesting. So you
Yeah,
great reminder of the fact that auto's got their thing, and
yeah,
but also the idea that the ripple. I mean, I guess I knew that, but
yes.
you take it for granted.
I forget what it is. If there's some formula for, each laid off worker that loses X salary, then it, ripples through
Yeah.
into cutbacks, and it does. And so that may not sound like a huge amount, but I think it's going to hit some of those communities pretty hard.
Right.
And so anyway, that's one industry that if people cut back on buying cars, or actually, there are other car manufacturers that are operating in the U.S. that are not U.S. brands that are still making sedans and smaller cars. But anyway, I'm just saying those brands are going to be hurt.
Interesting.
That now, I don't know that. I mean, I don't think real estate around here in Boston area is kind of softening, but it's been so high and so strong, and there's so much demand. I don't know that we're going to see a huge crash here.
Right.
And real estate.
Real
But
estate.
anyway,
Yeah.
my point is, then you need to look at your customers and say, okay, how is a downturn going to affect my market?
Right. Okay. So we did economy, and that gave us some
Now
overall context. Maybe looking for ripple effects, looking for tangential things of how it might ripple down to us or to now our customers. Okay. So yeah, what are we looking at when we're talking about our customers?
Well, if you look at if the auto companies are cutting back now, they're cutting back brands and they're cutting back certain technologies.
Yeah.
So if you're a software company that makes CAD/CAM software, they may not need as many licenses. So you need to think about just the local, does the CAD/CAM company sell a lot to the auto industry?
Right.
Does it sell to the construction, to the farm equipment industry? Farming is another industry that is getting hurt right now. And I don't know what's going to happen to that, but I'm just saying, you think about, where does your technology product go? At least that's what I think, because I deal with technology.
Okay.
If you're selling to municipalities, maybe you don't want to sell to the ones that you don't want to spend a lot of effort in Michigan because their tax receipts may be hurt. So just
true. Okay.
think about, where are my customers and where are their customers potentially? So just see how a downturn.
I like that. My customer's customer.
Yeah.
Who
Look
does
at
your
a headline
customer
and
sell
say,
to?
okay, what's going to happen in those states? And I'm just using this as an example. I mean, there's other industries like this, but if you lose a big auto plant, then where are the where are the components plants, where are the raw materials plants, and where are those what's going to happen to those locations? So it's just an example of thinking through what your customers and their customers' industries. So if you're a CAD/CAM software maker, it's not just your customer. If your customers are going to cut back and not develop as many component parts for the automakers, well, then you got to cut back. You got to realize you got to cut back. Or one thing you should do then is think about diversifying.
Right. Especially if your primary customer base is in a economy that may get hit or is at risk. Good call. I was gonna say, the inverse is true as well. If suddenly GM turns it around and makes an amazing car, not likely, but let's say they do.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be thinking, okay, there's gonna be a boom in this particular market. How does that play out for my customers? How does that play out for me? But in the same way, if there's a downturn in a particular market, how does that affect my customers' customers?
Yes.
And can I differentiate and work in a different marketplace?
Right. So we know that, so the whole transportation industry is changing, but there's still a lot of air travel.
Right.
There's been lots of new airlines that are almost like buses in the air. So, maybe looking at airline manufacturers. Now that's a global market, but hey, that's one thing to do if you're making CAD/CAM software. Again, I'm just picking one area.
Sure.
As a potential.
The point definitely sticks. And it sounds like this would be one of the main ways that you could, in a winter season, in a business downturn, go on the offensive. We're not necessarily saying on the offensive in that marketplace, because that marketplace may be dried up temporarily. It may be in a different marketplace, but like adding that new market you might be growing like crazy. just repurposing and refocusing on that area until the other one improves. That's cool.
Right. Of course, there's already probably competitors in there. So you're going to have to figure out what can I offer that's better. But it's worth looking at when your primary market is going through a downturn. So I think the other thing
Makes
to do
sense.
is you just got to keep checking on it. Think about you're doing an annual plan, but revisit it every quarter.
Right.
Take a look and say, okay, what has changed? You're not redoing it every quarter. You're just saying, hey, what has changed? Is the industry, does my industry and the overall economy look stronger, look weaker? What's been going on?
Right.
Healthcare, for example, has been up and down and kind of all around because of, um, you know, uh, different opinions out of DC, et cetera. But I'm not getting into politics. I'm just saying that there's different external factors, because the problem is us baby boomers aren't going away. We're going to be pouring into the healthcare system, especially hospitals, et cetera. So you've got
Oh,
different factors operating in different industries. So how do
oh,
you
that's a
take?
good point.
Yeah, yeah,
You're kind of exposing me and opening my eyes to some more of the macro type elements of things that are in play out there that could
yeah,
affect me. And I think maybe my head hasn't been in the sand, but I think I've been sort of narrowly focused on my own sales, even not even thinking about the sales of my customers and the markets that they're in. I mean, it's a great exercise to be thinking about that.
exactly,
And I
exactly,
also like that you want to adjust. I wrote down plan to revisit your plan. You know,
exactly.
I like that. And not you set a goal for the year, but in every quarter you're checking in and you're setting quarterly goals so that you know. And we do that here. You know, at our company, we set these yearly goals to hit, and then we create quarterly goals that are in place to reach them. And we're able to adjust every quarter and see, what's changing and what's not. Now, adjusting any faster than a quarter typically gives everyone whiplash. So
Yeah, it
quarters in
does.
tempo, and then
Yeah.
reevaluate, see where we need to, maybe focus over here and do a little more marketing here. Yeah, it's a great idea to have that tempo of revisiting your planning.
So you're creating a plan and you're saying this is my most likely scenario, but think about, okay, that may be like, okay, it's 50% likely that it's going to be right down the middle. This is my plan, but maybe it's 25 better, 25% not as good. So you
Sure.
just want to keep in mind, how likely do I think my plan is? And therefore, how much should I be looking at the other alternatives? Scenario planning, that's a whole nother topic. But I'm just saying that thinking about the different scenarios can help you think about, what assumptions am I really making? If you're making a plan that says the economy is going to continue the way it is, well, you should probably check that.
I feel like I'm getting a class from Harvard Business School thanks to you. And I know this because I'm barely hanging on by my fingertips.
No, sorry about that. Just,
No, it's not you. I'm in it to win it here. But this
yeah,
is good. I mean, you got to challenge our mindsets and expand them. You got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. So it's
yeah,
kind of cool though. We're thinking about these different changes. Question on your competitors: Does
yes.
planning for changes in the competitors? I mean, how does research play into that? What's your take?
Oh, absolutely. Everybody should have essentially a baseline profile of their main competitors, the ones they usually see. And then I'm going to get into a whole another area in a minute. But you should do that, and you should probably kind of check in monthly. Probably have an alerting service that says, "Hey, if um, if the XYZ company makes a major announcement, send me the press release. Let me see what they're doing. Are they announcing a new product, a new country? We're now expanding into
Mm-hmm.
Western Europe, or we've now got a new office in Japan. I mean, just whatever it is. And you go, is there an implication here that I should think about? Or should I just include that in my quarterly plan? So you want to keep track of your competitors, I think a little more closely than quarterly, but not necessarily watching every move. Now that's your traditional competitors. But let me talk a little bit about disruptive innovation. That's like,
Okay. Yeah, I like
there's
it.
a famous Harvard Business School professor, Christensen. And he came up with this phrase because he was studying industries, and he was finding that, the big industries in technology or, um, you know, uh, construction, ditch digging, I mean, they change over time, not every 5 years maybe, but maybe every 8 to 10 years. And when you talk about planning, you've got people in these companies that are doing all the right things. They're trying to sit down, they're trying to look at the economy, they're trying to look at
Sure.
how the company's doing. They're going off and talking to their major customers. They're investing in some new technology. So let's take disk drives as an example. So, the companies that were making the platters, the big platters years ago for the disk
Yeah.
drives, they
Sure.
went and they talked to their customers who said, well, no, we're all set for these, 12-inch platters. That's what our disk drives need. And that's what our customers need because they're big mainframes. And they said, well, we've been developing these smaller platters. No, we don't really need them. Thank you. So these guys in the platter business were doing everything right. But what they didn't understand was there was a whole new business ecosystem being built out there. So that technology, a smaller platter and a smaller disk drive could be used with a workstation. So
Right.
sometimes you have disruptive technology, and it's very rare for a company that becomes an expert in one technology to really move to a radically different technology.
Right.
That is really hard to do. So over time, it's you can get really good at your area of expertise, and then you find it's not really wanted anymore because a
Right.
whole set of products. I mean, you've gone from mainframes to mini computers to workstations to PCs, and now I got a phone. I got a phone that can do as much as
Oh
the
yeah.
computers can do.
Gigantic platters of data, and it's all on your phone now.
Yeah, I don't even need my camera anymore. I don't need my watch. I mean, think of all the kind of the industries that have been disrupted by that smartphone. So if you think about that, and I know that there was some question a few years ago, what what device is going to become dominant? Well, it's pretty clear. It's the smartphone now.
Sure.
So that's kind of a longer term issue that you have to think about as a company. It's it's hard to kind of see where that technology change is, but it's part of understanding your market is not to look at your current direct competitors, but to look at
What could be your
potential,
competitor? Yeah.
what could be your competitors. Clay Christensen talks about the steel industry, which, I know a lot of your listeners aren't necessarily in the steel industry, but, you had these big mills,
Sure.
huge mills they were very volume oriented. And then somebody developed a mini mill, but the quality wasn't as good. So the owners of the big mills said, so what? But they were fast, and there were certain applications where a lower quality product was,
Ah.
and you could put it closer to the customers because you could build 5 mini mills instead of one big
One
one,
big
and
one.
you could lower the cost of transportation. Okay, so then the mini mills took some of the business away from the big mill companies, and then they got better, and then more mini mills. So then you kind of the big steel companies ended up losing a lot of their
Mm,
customers to a
sure.
different way of making steel, which sounds kind of funny, but yeah, it just, if you're depending on huge volume and somebody else can do lower volume and locate it right next to the customer, then there's a real advantage there.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
there's that whole theory, and it's you need to look out for disruptive technology and disruptive business practices. You know how
Mm,
the whole industry went from on-prem systems to
true.
subscription,
Yep.
and you
In the
look at that
cloud. Yeah.
in the cloud. Everything's in the cloud now. I mean, not everything is in the cloud, because if you've got legacy, I
Sure.
mean, a lot of companies do, but everything new is in the cloud.
I wonder what will be that kind of disruption for marketing automation and Salesforce. if anything. So I'm trying to like apply this whole principle of things are changing. Like Cheshire Impact, we're the top Pardot partner, but
Yes.
that's cool. But that all that means is that, you know, we have to be aware and we can't be set in our ways that we're the big steel
Exactly.
mill. I don't want to be the big steel mill, you know?
Hmm.
I'll let Blue Wolf do that.
Yeah.
I want
Yeah.
to be the mini mill and the big mill. I want to be all the mills.
Exactly. You want to
Yeah.
think about, well, what am I doing? Is there somebody out there that's doing something different that seems to be really attractive? And that's a good question on marketing automation, because right now, marketing automation, as I've seen it, there's a lot of functionality out there, but no one's really putting it together in a good, attractive package right now. Users still have to pick the packages and put all the information together. And I think a simpler way of doing that for the customer is going to be what we'll see next.
Interesting.
But that's
Simpler. Yeah. Yeah.
except that, you know, it's still like, what's simpler for the customer. What customers still have different needs. So
Right.
I'm not ready to sit here and predict, you know, that it's going to be just one total package. But I think you will see consolidation, because it's just too much money and too much trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the reasons you go to the cloud and have a subscription service is that, you know, somebody else is taking care of a lot of the headaches,
Right.
you know,
For
so
sure.
all you have to do is use the software. I
That's
don't
it.
have to worry about backup and, you know, all that kind of
Right.
stuff. Even me, everything's in the cloud. So, but companies different in what they need. So there may be multiple suppliers there, but I think you'll see a fewer suppliers over time in marketing automation. And that's partially because some of the companies that, you know, buy other companies like Oracle. I mean, have they bought a company this week? No. Geez, what's wrong? It's Friday already.
Yeah. Right.
You know, I'm just joking, but
No, it's true. Yeah. I mean, Oracle
not.
bought Marketo. So
Yes, yes, they did. So I think you're going to see.
which
Um,
is crazy.
it's crazy, yeah. But they think that's
Wait,
the
no, was
fast.
it Oracle? No. Who bought Marketo? Um,
Um,
because Oracle has Eloqua.
yes. Oh,
Adobe. It was Adobe, I think.
yes, yes. You're right. I'm not, you know, keeping track. So
Yeah.
some of the
Yeah.
bigger players are, you know, inching into the.
They are. Yep.
Yeah. So you get for marketing automation, you're going to see consolidation,
I agree.
because if they can integrate these packages together, which I haven't seen, you know, in the market really yet, then that's a real benefit
Right.
to customers. Because again, they just want it done.
Yep.
You know, they want to do what is their core competence and not deal with software and, you know, maintaining it, et cetera. And like worried about when somebody starts says, well, this data is in this form and you have to integrate it with that data. I'm like, because
Right.
I'm basically more of a marketing sales research person. I, I don't want to worry about the nitty gritty like that.
Yeah.
So you're going to
Data.
see
Yeah.
that. And I think that'll make it easier for marketing automation. Um,
Agreed. Well, everyone has their big brother now. I mean, Pardot has Salesforce.
yeah.
Marketo finally has a home. I thought Microsoft might buy them, but that was Adobe.
Yep.
And Oracle has Eloqua. The
Exactly.
CRM has a marketing tool, so you have marketing connected all the way into CRM, so you get that full picture and ROI. So yeah, HubSpot made its own CRM. Why not?
Exactly.
Um,
Well,
yeah. Yeah.
it's there being able, now we have the computer power, et cetera, to manipulate that data so you can really take more advantage of it. And that's going to be a competitive weapon for
Right.
their customers. If you don't have a complete solution, it's going to be more difficult to compete because they don't want to do it themselves, do the integration themselves.
Right.
So anyway, that's one of the things that you need to be using those tools and kind of set up some reports that can show you what's going on out there.
Yeah.
So from your own data, you
Right.
know, are you seeing any dip in a particular a big dip in a strong customer, or you've seen certain industry start to dip, figure out, set up those reports and kind of just see what's happening there. Because those are good internal indicators for you.
Interesting. So the work we're doing, because we talked on the last time we chatted about buyer personas and really understanding your buyer based on win-loss. And if we're doing all the work anyways to get the research, why not slip in questions around the future, or slip in just signals to keep track of changes? So, and not just doing that buyer research once every 10 years, because your customer may change. Actual
that's right.
Change and
Spread
everything.
it. Yeah, spread it. Do it regularly. Do a few customers every quarter and kind of see what's new.
Right.
See if you're got a new competitor in there. See if you're not seen as much of an older competitor. See if there's some new functions that are being talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah. See where you're, just keep your finger on the pulse of your customers.
Right.
I just think that's a good way of doing that. It's just an organized way of doing that. I know every company I've been to, they talk to customers, but they don't necessarily do it in an organized fashion. They don't necessarily make sure they're talking to a range of customers.
Right.
And they don't talk enough to non-customers. That's the biggest thing that they need to do.
Huh.
Well, yeah. Why would you, how would you have a regular relationship with a non-customer? But that's really important to understand potential customers, essentially, that aren't buying your product.
Yeah. Why didn't they? Yeah.
Why didn't they? That's why you get into the win-loss.
Right.
And that's why it's important to do both. But having that win-loss program gives you the information and helps you be able to evaluate every quarter what's going on and what you should be looking at. And can't ignore some little guy. Now, I'm not saying to pay attention to this little guy who's gotten one or two deals.
Sure.
But you might want to just take a little look and see what's going on.
What's cooking? Yeah.
Yeah, see what's cooking, to see if that's somebody that could be growing up and to take more of your market share.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I think that's one of the things that this regular looking externally can do.
Right.
So what you want to do, actually, one question you can ask in these win-losses that I haven't really asked that much, but what's going on in your marketplace? So if you ask your customers.
Oh, I see what asking them specifically about their market.
Yeah, actually that would be another good indicator, because they could say, yeah, my industry is really strong right now, or yeah, I'm seeing sales increase a lot because I have a new product. I mean, just that would be really helpful in terms of, I just thought of that. Hey, this is great. I just thought of that as we were talking.
Boom.
That's a question to ask when you're doing win-loss.
Yeah.
You're not
How's your market?
Yeah. How's your market doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a collective chart of the markets of all your customers.
Yes. Yep. And you can understand then what's driving them. I mean, you always ask them, why are you looking to make this purchase? You want to see what's their pain point that's driving them to make a change in how they operate by, implementing Salesforce.
Right.
So, but asking them what's the more general question is, how's your industry doing? It would be another layer on that.
Yeah.
So that would be interesting.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
What do you think's cooking for 2019?
I think
what should we keep our eyes on?
Keep our eyes on, well, the stock market's been going up and down and up and down. And that's kind of generally considered a leading indicator.
Oh, yeah.
Not 100%. But we're also seeing interest rates rise. That's kind of causing the real estate market to slow down somewhat.
Okay.
So there's a ripple effect there with construction companies and then building materials. So that's one thing to look at. So I see some of the basic industries having not necessarily a really good year next year. But that's just my guess. I'm not
true.
necessarily looking at that, but we have had one of the longest upturns in our history. So,
Mm,
so that's one of the reasons that people are trying to be careful for next year,
right.
because they're saying, "Hey, what's going on?" And I think that it's going to be harder for the Federal Reserve to control it because we already have a fairly big deficit as a country, so you can't do deficit funding.
Okay.
So, remember when the Depression hit, that was Herbert Hoover, and he didn't really want to. He was like, "Well, then we need to cut back because tax revenues are going to cut back." So then FDR said, we need to get people working. We need to get
Right. The opposite.
money in pockets so people can eat and they can,
Yeah.
and so whole different approach. A lot of deficit funding then, but it worked, helped a lot of people. So I'm just saying that there were some tools that we'll see if we can use in the next downturn. But I'm kind of going high level,
Yeah. High level.
high level, immediate level, high level. I'm just saying, you get, as a business person, you kind of get involved in your day-to-day routine. And I'm just saying, take a deep breath and look up and just say, what's going on from the
Right.
bigger picture? And how is that going to affect me? How is that going to affect my customers, and therefore my customers, and therefore me? What do I have to do if I see that the economists are predicting a lower gross national product?
Sure.
It doesn't mean that, oh, my business is going to be hurt, but just kind of think, how would that affect me?
Sure.
Not every day, but just kind of keep it in mind. And then as you do your quarterly updates, kind of see what's going on among your customer and your customer's customers.
Yeah. So like you said, you don't have to do it every day, but when it comes to
No.
planning for 2019, it's something to keep in mind. Your customers. Take a deep breath,
Yeah,
look up, look around you. Don't just be focused, tunnel vision on what you're selling, but look at the market around you and your market's market. Look at that too. That makes
exactly.
a lot
But
of
keep
sense.
close track of your competitors. That's always the rule, because you need to see what they're doing. Are
Right.
they trying to expand I mean, that's just always what you do. New products. Are there anything uh, maybe are they making an acquisition? Speaking about technology companies making acquisitions, or maybe there's a combination there. And what's going to happen with that? Would that make your competitor stronger?
Mm,
Would there be, additional people to sell it?
right.
Additional channel penetration for some reason? So, as you say, some of these combinations make particular competitors stronger because you're leveraging off the base of software that Oracle or Adobe or Microsoft has. So that could make a competitor much stronger if they get acquired by one of those companies.
Sure.
Yeah.
Huh.
And
Well, this is great. I've been, thinking out my mind's all in the clouds now, literally.
yeah, it was kind of interesting because a lot of companies kind of went from on-prem and a subscription. And they said, well, how am I going to make up the money? And, there were some companies that just charged the same amount for subscription as they did for, um, a
For
year.
on-prem. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like almost a year of maintenance. So they upped their maintenance prices, and then they said, here's your subscription price. So they kind of just moved customers over. So it wasn't a big,
Right.
and I was like, oh, because the disruption can be technological or it could be on a business basis.
Right.
So it's managing that transition that is, the key to looking at keeping track of these changes and doing that planning.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
It's
And then make
challenging to
sure.
think that way, but go ahead.
So then the other thing you need to think about is how, you need to get the whole company together on its planning so that
Yep.
if you're planning, every part of the company needs to be working on the same set of goals.
Right.
Some of the best managers I've heard about have been really good about kind of setting a goal and getting everybody in the company to work together towards that goal. And that means like your manufacturing people or your development team. A lot of software companies, of course, don't have manufacturing, but
Right.
your software team, your customer service, sales, marketing, channel partners, just kind of all on the same page and working together to whatever that goal is, and then understanding that you're going to take a look at it every quarter.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And ideally, you get everyone's collective thinking about that bigger picture, and
Yeah.
you're all thinking about the markets of your market. And
Yep. Yeah.
yeah.
And
Wow.
one of my classmates was at Intuit, and they were like, "Yeah, customer service complaints are great. What? It's free market research. You don't have to go out and find it. They tell you what your product needs. They
Yeah,
call
that's
you
true.
and say." And I was like, "Boy, I never thought of it that way." But that's exactly right.
Yeah.
So don't think just you have to go outside all the time. Sometimes the outside comes to you, and pay attention to that.
Pay attention to when that. Yeah, it's a good tip to pay attention to those customer service complaints.
Yes.
That's where you can improve in the marketplace.
Yeah. They're telling you exactly what you need to do. They say, well, it takes too long to implement this. I don't understand. Your material isn't understandable.
Right.
Just things like that. Or why can't I do this? So that was great to have that. So I'm just saying, keep looking for sources of information that you can use as you do your market planning to kind of input into it. Market planning isn't something that a small group does, and then it's like, okay, one and done. You have to keep looking at it. You have to get input from a lot of people.
Right. Different perspectives, so that you
Yes,
exclude your own personal bias to the situation.
that's right. A diverse group is actually better at coming up with a solution than a, a group with too many people who are alike,
Yeah.
because they don't challenge each other.
Right. They're like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, I agree. Oh, that's perfect. Oh, and then we could do this, and they just spin off on the thing, and a little healthy pushback can really refine what you're doing.
Exactly. Like, well, wait a minute. How much is this going to cost? And how effective is this going to be? And what have you done in terms of, preparing the market for it? I mean, I
Right.
think that's some of the greatest, those internal discussions
Sure.
can keep you from making some major mistakes.
It's interesting you bring that up because I used to, like naysayers really bothered me because I'm all about that energy of that idea, and naysayers are just so annoying when they shoot holes in your thing, and it's just ugh. But I learned over time, and then also Dan Sullivan with Strategic Coach has a great book and tool on it called the Strategy Circle. And what's cool about basically it's a strategic planning tool, but it involves the naysayers. In fact, it
Yep.
highlights them. And so you start out with where you're at, where you want to go, what would success look like, what's that going to feel like, what's all the good stuff, and when you get to this end result, why is that important? Great. And then it says, okay, what could get in the way of us getting to that? Like, what are all the things that would go wrong? What are all
Yeah.
the things that would prevent us from getting to that goal? And you list them out on this page. But what's crazy is just to the right of that list are your strategies to address those. So, well, no
Oh,
one's trained enough, so we're not going to do it. Or, okay, so we need to develop training to be able
exactly.
to do X. Okay, what else? Well, pricing is too complicated. Okay, we need to simplify pricing, right? So you let the naysayers go crazy, but then proactively you assign these strategies, these to-dos, or these projects to
Exactly.
address it. And so what's crazy is the naysayers become the creators of eventually what it becomes a strategy for fixing it. And it's just like this, it
It's
kind of
perfect.
judo flips it around. They're like, oh, this will never work because of X. You're like, great. What else do you have? I'm writing it down. What else would prevent this from working? Because that's about to become your to-do for next quarter,
Exactly. Exactly. So then it's much better thought out. And and you go into the market. So I work with this researcher, and Betsy, she's never met a detail she didn't like.
Oh,
And I'm
nice.
like, Okay. I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. But you know what? Then she gets all these details straight and customers love her because I'm trying to be a bigger picture, but you got to have both. So
Yeah.
we're a good team. And I think we recognize that. So again, it's like you need those differences to
Mm.
produce a better product. So yes, you need the naysayers
Yeah.
that say, what about this and that? I
You
think
know,
that's a really good point. And it's really important to have, there's companies that assign people to do that.
yeah.
Yeah, there's actually companies. So they'll say, hey, Casey, you know, the part wants to do X, but we want you to be part of a team and tell us why we shouldn't do it. I
Nice.
mean, official, they really do assign
Yeah, like a
people
red team or someone to
like a, yeah, like
specifically
a
go
red
after
team.
it. Yeah.
And to say, because if you can get through that, then you got a really good idea.
Right.
It really makes sense. You've thought it through much better. So that's why this tops down market planning doesn't really work, because you really need to have more input than somebody on top saying, I think this is what we should do.
Right.
The best managers, most successful managers listen to the people, and kind of take in a lot of information and then be able to assimilate that. And that's a rare skill, but still, that's my point is bring in information from a lot of different areas, think through the implications, and you'll be much better able to respond to the market and whatever the market does. There are
Absolutely.
lots of companies are going to do well in the next downturn, and you want to be one of them by being prepared for it and seeing where there are opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me, the red team and that internal. I was reading a book, and this Navy SEAL book, and they had a facility down in Rhode Island, actually. I don't know if this was in Jocko's leadership book or if it was another one. But they had a red team. He was like famous for this. Lots of trouble. Red teams are horrible for politics, or the whole goal was to see, how vulnerable is this sub base in, I don't know if it was Rhode Island, just right
Yeah,
around
I
that
think there
area,
was
right?
one. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
So it was like, infiltrate this sub base. Go ahead, see if you can do it, right?
Yeah,
And there were obviously four sides to the square, four sides to the base, but one of those sides was this like cliff, right?
yeah,
So no one would ever want to go down a cliff, or come up a cliff. I don't know which direction it was. So it was like not guarded really at all.
yeah.
And so they sort of just, I don't know if they climbed it and they climbed down it or whatever they did. And there they got into the base. They took over everything. They're like, well, you can't do that. You came down the cliff. And they're like, what in the rules says that, like, oh, we're going to put rules around testing now, about around the situation here. And so it's helpful having that other, I mean, his whole job, to your point, there are people with their job is to poke holes in things. But if you judo flip that, use a strategy circle or that kind of an idea, that becomes immeasurably valuable because they're either exposing the hole in your security or the hole in your strategic plan to grow next year.
Exactly. I mean, in that kind of situation, there's no rule that you're going to tell the enemy, hey, you can't come down this cliff. Yeah,
Right.
sure.
Right.
So I've done some projects, and we actually do this as
Oh, really?
part of our offerings. We'll have a company come to us and say, okay, you try and get into us. So I had a company that was building, it wanted to overhaul its manufacturing, big spending. And they were looking at all their competitors and seeing the best practices. And they said, well, we want to test how good the CI is. So we'll have somebody look at us. So we did it.
Right.
And obviously, only a few people knew that we had been hired to do this. We just went through our normal kind of networking our way in and asking a question and just sort of say, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And then, oh, okay, I'll tell you more, kind of thing.
Right.
So I've never had, some of my researcher says, do I make them happy? I said, you make them unhappy. You make them very unhappy. I never had such unhappy clients.
Oh, no.
I mean, we found out blah, 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 blah.
I
And I'd get
know.
silence. They were just like so shocked at what we could find out. They just didn't think
Well,
that
the
much.
worse the news is, the better you can improve on it and
Exactly.
whatnot. I found
We
that
were
book. It was called Red Cell. And it was
Red
by
Cell. Yeah,
Richard Marcinko, I think.
yeah.
Marcinko. Yeah, but yeah, absolutely. It's an important part to play. What you're mentioning with your researcher, yeah, and her type of approaching details. Have you ever done a Colby or heard of
What's a,
Colby?
what's that?
It's like it's in the category of personality test, but it's not personality. It's essentially, instead of cognition or personality, it's conition.
Oh,
Um,
you mentioned it before,
yeah,
but and I no, I haven't, and I
yeah,
still haven't.
we
But
gotta. I'll get you a link. I'm going. The reason I mentioned I'm going to Phoenix to get certified in it, so we can do it for the whole
that'll be
team. Yeah, yeah. We've
that'll be
so far
interesting.
we just the leadership team has done it, but we want to have everyone be able to do it, and it really helps because people on my team thankfully are high in the details where maybe I'm not high in the details. I'm middle in the details,
Yeah,
low
yeah,
middle. And so I like summaries usually. And there's thankfully people on the team that go to the nth degree to make sure they've looked at that detail to make sure it's good. And like you balance each other out. If someone gets too
exactly.
detail crazy, I go, hey, bring it back. Bring it back. What's the summary? At the same time, I could make a quick summary and I think we maybe need a little more details before we make a call here. Okay. And there it's like a nice balance. And it's the idea of fact finding, the follow through, how much planning do we need? And I think a lot of times marketers are low in the planning. I know I am. And so it helps just even think about it and just think about your thinking about why you haven't done a plan yet. It's okay if it's not your thing. At least want to get some things on paper so you can start, heading it out in advance.
And I
Yeah.
think I tend to go, okay, I'm just gonna. This is work before I'm just gonna do it, and
Yeah.
I
Me
should
too.
do more planning myself, and
Totally.
totally just so I know how to do it because I get hired to do it. I mean, so I'll get hired by
Right.
somebody who says we got to do a plan for next year, and we really need to look at this market, or we need to understand this competitor better and what they're planning to do.
Sure.
So I often provide input into strategic plans or the whole marketing planning process. And I think that's important
Yeah.
to look at the outside and say, what's really going on?
Sure. Do you do any personal planning? Got any goals for next year?
I do get my kids to college.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They right on the cusp.
Yes, they are. And one daughter's been accepted by a couple of colleges.
Ooh, congrats.
Yeah, that's what I
Or
said.
not, depending on how expensive that school is.
Well, yeah. Well, a lot of schools are offering, scholarships up front, you
Sure.
know, help
Good.
up front. We have to take a look at it, but you know what it did? It lowered her anxiety. It's like, okay, I have a
Right.
college to go to that's fine.
Right.
Not maybe my top school, but it's fine. I'm going to
Right.
college. That first acceptance. And my other daughter is still like, I'm like, well, when do you want to go visit them? Well, I don't know. So I have to work on that.
Yeah.
So that's my big plan for next year, and I need to be quite busy because I'm going to need to pay for it,
You're gonna need to pay for all that school. Yep.
all that school. But hey, that's good. It's good. So I've got this kind of planned for the year of what I'm
Nice.
going to do, and right now I'm pretty busy, which is great.
Yeah, that's outstanding.
Yes,
Um, I think
but
on my list, I've got some biggies like I want to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. I want to run a half marathon. I do want to learn how to juggle though. I think that would be fun. I think
that would be
it'd
fun.
be cool to just pick up three things and juggle them randomly.
Yes,
You know, I think that'd be a good life skill to have, especially for me.
yes.
So if the
We're always
podcast ever
juggling
gets
anyway.
boring, right? We're just like, okay, start juggling.
That's what you do as a manager and a business owner. You juggle
Hey,
a lot of things and
it's a
kind of
great
like, how much
metaphor.
time do I spend here and what
Yeah,
do I pay attention to? And I think it's important sometimes to step back and just think
sure.
at a higher level and kind of think, well, how that's going to affect me, and then just go do things. Make a plan, then start working it.
You're right. My quick start's going, oh, I can learn how to juggle and then figure out how that metaphor relates to business.
Yeah.
There's a
Oh
book,
no, I got
Business Juggling.
that. Business juggling. Yep. Yep. But I think you have to juggle more than three things then.
True.
Yeah.
Couple more things.
Yep.
Well, this has been fun. It's great to chat again, and especially getting it in before the new year. You have challenged me and my mindset, getting me to think about macro concepts of. I think the key takeaway I had was like my clients' clients. How are they
Yes.
doing? And of course, do the research not only for your own buyer personas, but just on your understanding and informing your quarterly planning and understanding where you need to move and respond to the marketplace. But just slipping that little question in there about asking your customers about their market. What are they seeing? How's it looking? It shows you
Exactly.
care, and it also gives you that insight. I like it.
Yeah. No, I should add that to more win-loss that I do.
Do it.
Suggest it
Do it.
more.
Call it the
Now that
Casey
we've talked
question.
about it, we kind of developed that good idea together, which
Yeah.
is great.
Yeah. You have to come back and let me know how it goes and what kind of data you see when you start asking them that, you know?
We'll do. We'll do.
Cool. Well,
Anyway, it's been fun.
yeah, thanks again. And, thank you. And then everyone for listening. Thank you for listening and tuning in. We're coming up on the new year. And so hopefully you got some, challenging, albeit challenging things, but, it's better to get comfortable being uncomfortable and factor those into
Exactly.
your plan. So, all right. Well,
Understanding, having a plan for it makes you going to make you do much better and feel much better about it.
oh yeah. Totally.
Totally. All right. Well, thank you for
Yeah.
having me
Yeah.
on.
Thanks
It's really
again.
been fun. I enjoy it.
Totally. I'm on a totally loop, so I got to get out of here. Thank you. And then everyone listening, thank you for listening. This has been the Hardcore Marketing Show. We'll see y'all next time.